Welcome to a Legendarium special about the weird and wonderful world of medieval art. In this episode, we will talk about the many strange images that pop up with surprising regularity in medieval artworks. Beginning with the fall of the Western Roman Empire, the Middle Ages extended from the 5th century to the late 15th century. This period sits in the middle between two other periods in Western history, namely Classical Antiquity and the Early Modern Era. Throughout the Middle Ages, artwork tended to be stylized and done for religious purposes. Starting in the 12th century, Gothic drawings and architecture began to flourish. Artists typically made drawings on panels, few of which still survive today, as parchment tended to be prohibitively expensive. However, drawing began to change at the turn of the 15th century as paper became cheaper. Drawings, much like illustrations today, decorated books and drew attention to particular parts of the writing. Such drawings appeared in documents ranging from bound manuscripts to legal documents, maps, and charts. Authors and artists filled pages with both real and imaginary things drawn from cosmology, reports of exotic animals, and scientific studies. Particularly strange and grotesque medieval sketches known as marginalia can be found, unsurprisingly, in the margins of manuscripts and other textbooks. Monks devoted their lives to producing devotional books and copying the Gospels. Sometimes they filled the page with beautiful patterns of flowers and ivy. Sometimes they added depth to the words by illustrating the stories. And still other times they drew seemingly random things, such as two knights fighting while holding their own heads in their arms while balancing on a vine. They also drew a four-armed man roping a dog and skeletons with upside-down heads. Strikingly, they frequently drew rabbits inflicting physical injury upon people, and nobody is quite sure why. There are pictures of rabbits charging into battle, mutilating knights, dragging off women, beating people with clubs, and chopping people up with axes. One especially nightmarish drawing shows two rabbits at war. One holds a dog with a shield on its shoulders, while the other rides a snail with a human head. Rarely do these images have anything to do with the words in the books. Perhaps the monks found the idea of rabbits getting their revenge on the humans that hunted them in some sort of great rabbit uprising quite amusing. Of course, at least one monk lamented, "Good Lord, even if the foolishness of it all occasions no shame, at least one might balk at the expense." This would not be the only time in medieval art that men came under attack by animals. Between the 13th and 14th centuries, pictures of knights in full armor valiantly charging into battle against snails became common. Some believe them an allegory for social struggles, especially the peasant revolts that swept across Europe after the Black Death. Others think them a metaphor for man's desperate struggle against the inevitability of death. Still others think the monks might simply have been bored and tried to give themselves a laugh. Another trend which backs up that particular theory is the frequency with which one finds men with trumpets up their rear ends. This could be a reference to enemas, often given by doctors for various ailments. Of course, they could also be ye olde fart jokes. The strangeness of medieval art carried into how they depicted key figures from the Bible. This dated back to early Christian art. At first, Christians depicted Jesus Christ as a youthful figure with curly hair, carrying a wand while doing his miracles. Only later did Christian artists take the halo used by pagans to portray the sun gods to distinguish Christ from others. Many medieval artists drew Moses with a horn or horns sticking out of his head. This might sound demonic, but the Old Testament described Moses' face as glowing when he descended from Mount Sinai. Since the original Hebrew word keren can mean either ray of light or horn, Perhaps Moses did have a horn at some point. When Gothic artists drew Mary Magdalene, they often drew her with a full chest of woolly hair that made her look like a goat. According to a legend, Mary Magdalene completely gave up on all earthly concerns after Jesus died. She stopped bathing and changing her clothes, and her robes became so tattered and ruined that they fell off. As a miracle to save Mary from wandering the world naked, hair sprouted all over her body. Medieval paintings often show major moments from the life of Christ, including the moment when his mother Mary held him in her arms for the first time, or the moment that he faced death on the cross. And then, up in the corner of the sky, a little man in the cockpit of a little white rocket blasts his way through space, perhaps Jesus Christ or one of the martyrs on his way to heaven. In either case, I refuse to believe ancient aliens involved themselves. Paintings of demons often gave them hideous faces upon their crotches. Since monks bound by oaths of chastity likely drew these, they likely intended them to be warnings against lust. They literally warned people that if they thought with their nether regions, they would wind up in hell. Such is the weird and wonderful world of medieval art. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.